everyone, Gaijin Goomba here, and welcome back to Yokai Hunters, where Japanese monster media meet to unravel the origins of anime and gaming's coolest characters. So remember that Demon Slayer video we did a few months back, talking about Nezuko and the origin of Japanese folklore Oni? Well, if you don't, we hinted at the idea that Nezuko was far from the only character who was based on yokai or other folklore creatures, and that we absolutely could break down even more characters from the series. So with the show becoming the absolute smash hit that it is, we thought, yeah, maybe it's time we come back to this series and make good on our promise.
And when we say smash hit, we mean its manga is now outselling One Piece in 2019. Yeah. Which in turn was no surprise why when we mentioned that we wanted to look into each of the series' antagonists Oni and their yokai origins, more than a few of you guys were excited at the prospect. But dude, that's something that I'm still not understanding. In that old video we explained that Oni in both the show and folklore are basically humans that gave in to their wicked desires and literally transformed into monsters, right? But toward the end there, you said, well, I can't help but think that a lot of these different Oni from Demon Slayer are other specific yokai.
Well, that's kinda cause they are.
What?
Don't worry, I'm already working on another video to explain all of that. That is if you guys want to see it.
Well, it's painfully obvious people want to see it, so tell us then. How is it that these Oni characters are uniformly one type of folklore creature, yet all of them are based off of some kind of yokai?
Simple word definition, my friend. I mentioned this a while back in the first ever Yokai Hunters episode that we ever did, but I think it bears repeating. These words that Japan uses to categorize its horrific folklore creatures, bakemono, yokai, mononoke, all these terms started from one, Oni. Back in the Heian period of the late 900s, when belief in, quote, other realm creatures was so strong there was actually a government branch devoted to them, there was no encyclopedia of yokai. Heck, Toriyama Sekien's collections that categorized yokai into what we know today wouldn't release until 1,000 years later in the 1770s. And the term that was given to these creatures was Oni, not meaning ogre or troll or whatever massive humanoid the word defines now, but rather its original meaning, to hide or conceal. See, something that you have to understand is that no one really knew how to categorize Oni. I mean, it was just kinda hard to do. Because not only were Oni extremely elusive, as their name implies, but just coming across one of them usually meant death to the eyewitness. Even the Onmyoji, whose government-funded job was specifically to deal with these creatures, didn't have a categorization system for them. I mean, there were a handful of exceptions, but even then, there wasn't that much detail to go off of. To cite an actual historical source, Uji Shui Monogatari, or a collection of tales from Uji in 1220, a monk coming upon a deserted temple decides to settle in for the night and begins chanting an incantation to the guardian deity Fundo. But suddenly, a crowd of some 100 strong came surging into the temple, every one of them with a torch in his hand. When they got close, he saw that they were fantastically weird creatures, not men at all. There were all sorts of them, some with only one eye, some with horns, while their heads were more terrible than words can describe. Yeah, it sounds like some other Oni we know, right? No, seriously, have you ever noticed in Demon Slayer that there's no real consistency of Oni? Like, there's rules to how they work as creatures, but every single one of them is unique in their own way physically. I mean, some of them have horns, some of them have odd numbers of eyes or faces, some have instruments coming out of them, and some are comprised of just a bunch of body parts. See, that's what Oni originally were, mysterious and even terrifying due to their inhuman inconsistencies.
So what you're saying is, Demon Slayer's Oni are actually more historically accurate than the modern take of what we know Oni to be?
Exactly. Not only does the series pull some great subtle themes from traditional Oni folk stories like Shuten Doji, with its theme of humans turning into monsters by giving in to their inhuman desires, but intentional or otherwise, Demon Slayer also picks up on this notion that Oni were more than just dumb, brutish ogres. They were the OG name for what we understand all yokai to be, back before they were classified and categorized in the Edo period. Before they were known as Ippon Datara, Hitotsume Nyudo, and Nokurokubi, they were simply known as Oni, creatures rarely seen but the ultimate bane of humanity. Which is why in Demon Slayer I find it so fascinating that so many of the different, quote, Oni that Tanjiro, Nezuko, Zenitsu, and Inosuke come across have tons and tons of references and origination with specific yokai without being direct inspirations. It's like, these are the Oni before Sekien and others put them into classifications.
Which is why you hinted at wanting to do a video talking about all the demon characters we've seen so far in this anime and their cryptic yokai inspirations, despite them being Oni. Alright, well, let me go warm up the Ofuda.
Yeah, you're actually gonna want like 6 of them, because there's a lot of characters in the show that have roots with specific yokai. But before we get started, as a quick point of reference, a lot of my research and example images come from Matthew Meyer's books and his website, yokai.com. I've cited him a lot in the past, but I just wanted to say specifically in a video that if you're interested in yokai as half as much as me, you would absolutely love his work, so please go check it out. Anyway, let's go all the way back to the beginning of the series. First, there was Tanjiro's little sister Nezuko, who was turned into an Oni. But we did an entire video on her like 2 months back, so if you're curious about her connections to folklore, go check that out. Next, there's the unnamed Odo no Oni, or Temple Demon, named simply because that's where Tanjiro and Nezuko found it. But rather than having inspiration from a specific folklore creature, the Temple Demon was basically the getting to know you introductory bad guy to what Oni in this world were capable of. In fact, it wasn't until Tanjiro graduates from Demon Slayer camp when we start seeing some really inspired Oni. In episode 6, we're introduced to another unnamed demon that the community has dubbed the Swamp Demon, or Numa Oni, due to this Oni's ability to pull people into this weird underwater swamp dimension where he presumably feeds on them. He's also apparently got a split personality that physically manifests into other forms. Kind of a wild card, right? Well, despite how unique of an Oni or yokai he may be, there's one at least genre of yokai he may fit into. Little G?
Yo, to, sha, kai, in, ich, zai, den, Kyukyu no Ritsuryo! Ah, the Chimimoryo. Originally not quite a term for a specific yokai, but rather an old Chinese classification of nature-based yokai. That is until the 1600s when two specific entities took the namesake, the Chimi and the Moryo. Chimi are yokai said to make their homes in mountains, forests, and swamps. They have human faces with bestial bodies and feed on the innards of humans that they isolate in their realm and ambush. Then there's the Moryo, which are similar to Chimi, but these are basically more yokai of water. Now, according to the Wakan Sansaisui in 1713, the Moryo is described as being a creature the size of a child, black and red in color, crimson eyes, long upright ears, super long beautiful hair, and eats the bodies of the dead. Yeah, not exactly the same as our swamp demon, but it's starting to hit some parallels, huh?
Oh, you freaking know it! Just like the Chimi, it makes its home in a realm of swamp and captures its victims by making them disappear into it, never to be seen again. But more notably is the connection with the yokai's other half, the Moryo. Not only being a yokai of water, much like our swamp demon, but it's the physical attributes that got me. Black in appearance? Well, despite the fact that the swamp demon's wearing clothes, yeah, it's still black. But red eyes, long beautiful hair, you better believe this guy's got it. I mean, just look at those peepers. Crimson as blood. And that long, pristine hair. Man, for a guy who spends most of the time under the water of a bog, he's got some great looking locks. And you know, the more I think about it, I often see Chimi and Moryo together in a lot of different depictions, both old and new, symbolic of their origin as something more unified. Could the Swamp Oni's multiple selves be a nod to that?
I don't know. That one seemed like a really loose connection.
Well then, how about Yahaba and Susamaru? If you didn't think these Oni were based on yokai before, you will after these two. First, Yahaba. This guy's a weird one. I mean, not for nothing, he does look pretty human compared to the other Oni we see in the show, but then you see this guy's hands and yeesh. Alright, I didn't think we were getting in a Pan's Labyrinth. Now, you might think having eyes on your hands would put you at somewhat of a disadvantage with the perspective constantly shifting, right? Well, apparently, Yahaba's eyes have the sensing power of a freaking bloodhound, able to track Tanjiro and company from meters if not miles away. And not only that, but apparently the arrows in the eyes allow him to move objects through the air in all manner of angles and speeds. So, who does that remind you of?
That one's easy. Kyukyu no Ritsuryo! Good old Tenome, literally meaning hand eyes. What appears to be a harmless old blind man is actually a ruthless hunter. Predominantly stalking around graveyards and open fields, Tenome are always on the proverbial lookout for a lost human to eat. But they don't eat people flesh like most other dangerous yokai. Instead, they eat bones straight out of your body, leaving nothing but a suit of skin on the ground. Now, the first thing a person may try to do is bolt away from this monstrosity, right? After all, yokai or not, it's still an old man of sorts. Well, you out of luck there, buddy, because the Tenome is a master of all of its senses and is able to track its prey in complete darkness. Such ability is seen in a folk story from Shichijo, Kyoto, where a young man went to a graveyard to test his courage when a blind old fellow approached him from the darkness. But the young man saw eyes in the blind coot's palms and bolted, hiding away inside a chest at a nearby temple, only for that Tenome to basically sniff him out. So yeah, eyeballs in the hands, seeking out humans to eat, able to track prey like a bloodhound. It really does go without question that Yahaba's based on the Tenome.
And then there's his companion Susamaru. Ever energetic, ever smiling, and ever looking for a fight, Susumaru possesses insane levels of physical strength, but specializes in beating people in the face with temari balls, a children's toy brought over from China. This gal revels in destruction and doesn't really care about what happens so long as she gets a good fight. Inevitably, when it's time to get serious, Susumaru shows off her true form by sprouting 2 extra pairs of buff arms to chuck 3 times as many temari balls. So let me ask you something. Who else do we know that has 6 arms and an unending lust for combat?
The Ashura, of course. Not really so much a Japanese-specific yokai, but rather a demigod demon taken right out of the karmic wheel of Hindu Buddhism. Ashura, above all else, live for war. Completely consumed with emotions of wrath, jealousy, and pride, they constantly clash and fight with the Deva, or more benevolent gods, or I guess basically anything that comes across their path. Usually described as having 6 arms and 3 faces, Ashura were eventually imported into Japan from China alongside Buddhism in general, adding more demonic creatures to their ever-growing compendium.
Yeah, it kinda sounds familiar, doesn't it? I mean, it's easy enough to see the basic connections. Susumaru has 6 arms, Ashura has 6 arms, Susumaru completely lives for physical challenge and combat, especially when we see that back and forth kicking match with Nezuko, and Ashura eat, breathe, and sleep war. But there's one other thing that links Susumaru to Ashura: her reckless emotions. Just like Ashura, who are slaves to their negative emotions of wrath and envy, which usually get the better of them, Susumaru's emotions became her own undoing. In a blinding, manipulated rage, Susumaru lets slip the true identity of her boss and the giver of her demonic power. But with that power came a curse. Should she ever reveal where she received that power from, it would turn on her. Which, yeah, it really did. Becoming the victim of her own emotions.
Cool, so what's next on the list?
Unfortunately, I actually have to end the video right here for now.
Wait, what? We still got the tongue demon, the horn demon, Kyogai, the entirety of Dewey's spider family. What do you mean you gotta end the video right now?
Well, sorry guys, I wish I had time to do one big long video on this, but I gotta start prepping for my next convention visit. For all you fans and friends on the Northeast Coast, I'm gonna be at Anime NYC from November 15th through the 17th. I got some big things going on there, but if you're in the area, I would love to be able to do a meet and greet for sure. So as soon as I get back from that, I'll be sure to wrap up this waltz into the yokai origins of Demon Slayer's demons. But before I go, I've got one last announcement. Over the last few months at the Gaijin community over on Twitter and DeviantArt, we've been holding a fan art contest for October, and the entries are in. But rather than just showcasing a few pieces, I want to show off all of them. Every single entry had its own style, flair, and I could see a lot of work was put into it. And I just had to include all of them. So thank you all for your submissions, and don't worry, the prizes are going to be out soon. But as always everyone, thanks for watching. If you're a fan of Demon Slayer and missed out on that Nezuko video, be sure to give it a watch. What we cover in it is surprisingly emotional. And be sure to swing back in a week or so for the thrilling conclusion of this marathon of demon divulsion into the original Oni of Demon Slayer. But until next time everyone, this is Gaijin Goomba, signing out.